Hi guys, so today we're going to be looking at sleep, which is the start of chapter 9. So sleep is defined as a reversible behavioural state of perceptual disengagement from and unresponsive to the environment. So most of you know what sleep is. I don't really need to go into much detail about it, but you do need to make sure that you remember that it is reversible. They'd like you to include that, so VCAR do like you to include the word reversible. So let's move on from there. So reversibility means that a sleeper can always be awoken with a strong enough stimulus such as a noise or bodily force and therefore reverse back to a conscious state. If not, then the state may be a coma, an anesthetic state, or some other similar condition. So for you to be considered or defined as sleep, it must be reversible. If it's not, then it's not sleep. So perceptual disengagement means that the sleeper has no awareness of the sights, sounds, smells, and other sensory stimuli in their external environment, of which they are usually conscious of in their waking state. So if you're in a deeper sleep, you're less likely to smell or hear something, and that's why they actually recommend that you have fire alarms just outside your door. Actually, it's a legal requirement as long as they don't come to my house. And that's because as we start to fall deeper and deeper into sleep, we actually we don't completely disengage, but we do have we have less of an engagement with the surrounding environment. So we wouldn't smell the smoke if there was a fire, right? We wouldn't necessarily see the fire, right, until it's too late. And especially if you can see the fire, then it's too late. So that is why they have fire alarms out there, and they're usually there to reawaken your engagement. So perceptual disengagement means that there's no awareness. So please be aware of that. Perceptual means you're not being aware of it. So they're unresponsive, and you may want to highlight that as well. So let's just see if I can highlight that. So unresponsive to environmental stimuli, right? So although a strong enough sensory stimulus may awaken the sleeper. So, for example, the fire alarm. When this occurs, the exact nature of the stimulus is not perceived by the sleeping person as it would be by an awake person. So think of all the times where you have actually, been in such a deep sleep and the alarm's gone off and you go, oh my God, what was that? What was that? Right? That is what they're talking about, right? You're not reacting to it the way a normal person would react if you heard your alarm, right? So a sleeping person takes a little bit of time for it to register. All right, so in other words, and it's annoying that I can't get rid of that. In other words, sleep is reversible. At some point, oh, thank God I got rid of it. All right, so in other words, in some point, sleep is reversible. You will wake up. However, whilst you're asleep, you may be unaware of what is around you and unresponsive to other stimuli. See those words that are capitalized? There's a reason why they are capitalized. Please make sure that you actually, put those words in your definition of sleep. So for example, Charmer is sleeping in class again, and as a result is unaware of what's going on in class and is unresponsive to any attempt to wake him up. However, at some point his consciousness will change and he will wake up eventually. So it's reversible. And I am sorry if you can hear my dogs. Alright, so there are exceptions to the rule. Although there are extended periods during which there is dramatic reduction or loss of conscious awareness, we can be conscious while asleep because awareness is possible during sleep. And think of it this way, although you're all too young to be having partners in bed, but think about it this way. You may awaken to somebody snoring, or you may awaken to somebody kicking you. You may awaken to someone being in the room. I remember, and we're about to go into a little crazy time of Miss Irving's life, I was at the Grand Canyon in a tour group, Don't Do Kentucky, and at the Grand Canyon I was so sick, like we're talking sick, and I went to bed early and my roommate came in and I was acutely aware. I was fast asleep, but I was acutely aware. As soon as she walked in, I thought she was a mass murderer. I thought she was going to kill me with an axe. And I literally started throwing things at her, like everything I could get. And yeah, they asked that I not be her roommate no more. But still, so you are aware of some things, right? So awareness is possible, but you're generally unaware of things going on around you. So generally unaware. So for example, during lucid dreaming, a person becomes aware that the events being experienced are a part of a dream. A sleepwalker, for example, is typically in a deep sleep state, yet they are walking or performing other more complex behaviors, such as when awake. You should see the videos of people, you know, baking and doing all that sort of stuff. So a sleepwalker actually does things that is actually very natural to them. It won't be terribly complex. They just do it a lot, and when they sleep, they act out those things again. All right, so our biological rhythms. So many of our naturally occurring physiological responses also follow a set pattern of periodic fluctuations. These cyclic, so these they pretty much rotate, changes in bodily functions or activities that repeat themselves through time in the same order are called biological rhythms. So in other words, there'll be a certain point where you naturally feel tired. There'll be a certain point where you naturally get hungry. And the school actually trains you to be hungry at certain times. So when that bell goes, it's almost classically conditioned you to start getting hungry. But your body actually does follow a set pattern. So you start to feel sleepy at a certain point. So your body temperature also changes. During sleep, it actually drops by 1 degree. I'm out of it today. Your blood pressure will go up and down at certain points of the day. Your blood sugar levels will go up and down during the day. The secretion of certain hormones, especially during the puberty times, people. Mental alertness. Some of you will be more awake during the morning but drowsy in the evening, and vice versa. And the sleep-wake cycle is very, very common. So the sleep-wake cycle is part of that cyclic changes, and that's the one that we're mainly focusing on today. So in other words, whilst we sleep, our body functions will change as we move through the different stages of sleep. Our body temperature, blood sugar, and blood pressure drop whilst we are asleep. We lose mental alertness. And this bit here, this section, I strongly recommend that you highlight and put into your notes. So, and don't forget the little me that's saying what to do. So sleep and biological rhythms. Our biological rhythms and the neurological clocks that drive them influence what time of day we are most alert, hungry, tired, or physically primed to undertake various activities. So our brain coordinates all the biological clocks so they function in a synchronized way. It is believed that there is at least one, probably more, master clocks in the brain. The 2 categories of biological rhythms are called circadian and ultradian rhythms. Please highlight those 2 words, and this one here, make sure you highlight. It's very, very important. Trust me, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, you need to know this. Moving on. So, a circadian rhythm, and you may even want to put this into your notes. It's very important. So a circadian rhythm involves changes in bodily functions or activities that occur as part of a cycle with duration of about 24 hours. I don't know why I remember it this way, but I see it as a circle like a clock, right? And the clock, pretend it's a 24-hour clock, right? So a circadian rhythm is 24 hours. Highlight, so bad. All right, so the daily human sleep-wake cycle is the most extensively studied circadian rhythm. Now, I have to stress this, and if you're not listening to me now, there's no hope. The daily human sleep-wake cycle, not the sleep cycle, the sleep-wake cycle is the circadian rhythm. Be very, very clear on this one. I'm gonna underline it. So the sleep-wake cycle, and we're just gonna circle the wake part, right, is a circadian rhythm. The sleep cycle is the ultradian rhythm. but we'll get to that. So it goes for 24 hours, right? So there's a period when you're asleep and a period when you're awake in the sleep-wake cycle, or in the circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm also causes us to feel more or less alert at certain points of the day. And that's going to be different for different people. Some of you are more alert in the morning, some of you more alert in the evening. For some reason these days I seem to be more alert at 2 a.m. in the morning. That needs to stop now. But anyway, moving on. Oh, of course I am. Okay, I need to delete. So in other words, the most important rhythm that is part of our biological clock is the circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm goes for 24 hours, or approximately. If you write 24 hours, VCAR will accept it, but yeah, just write approximately anyway. So the sleep-wake cycle is the most widely examined circadian rhythm. A sleep-wake cycle is an entire day of 24 hours, and the time when we are awake and when we are asleep. So make sure you remember that. Alright, so circadian rhythms, although internally produced and persisting in the absence of external cues such as sunrise and sunset, our sleep-wake cycle is nonetheless influenced by environmental time stimuli, which are used to keep it in sync with the 24-day night cycle that occurs as the Earth rotates on its axis. So let's put it this way. The sleep-wake cycle on a normal day is going to be dictated by the sun rising and the sun setting. You wake up when it rises and stays up, and then you go to bed when it sets. Well, you know, a little bit later, when it's dark. When we have this particular issue, such as the COVID issue, we are going to have situations where the sleep-wake cycle gets shifted slightly, but we'll get to that in a minute. Even in the absence of light, we tend to actually still follow a sleep-wake cycle, right? We still happen to follow the circadian rhythm. However, the circadian rhythm tends to actually just be increased by an hour. So it goes for 5 hours. So for example, numerous studies of individuals in isolated environments where no natural light or other indicators of the time of day are available, they have found that the circadian sleep-wake rhythm is different when compared with before and after isolation. When in time-free environment, so that means they have no access to watches or anything that would give them the time of day, such as natural light or darkness, so they're just in an artificial setting, the sleep-wake cycle becomes free-running and tends to be pushed forward. Participants tend to go to sleep slightly later and awaken a little bit later as they drift into a cycle longer than 24 hours and closer to 25 hours. And that's why they're saying that the circadian rhythm is approximately 24 hours. Alright, so in other words, the sleep-wake cycle is created based on environmental cues. This means that we sleep when it is dark and are awake when it is light. These are the environmental cues, sometimes known as Zeitgebers. I'm actually not kidding, they're called Zeitgebers. However, when in a situation where there are no environmental cues, so the lights are constantly on or it is completely dark, our sleep-wake cycles goes from a 24-hour day to a 25-hour day. See? Zeitgebers. I love Zeitgebers. So environmental time cues are called Zeitgebers, from the German meaning time givers. The Zeitgebers, it's fun to say, trust me, just say it, helps to maintain the biological clock to a 24-hour day. So when the light is present, then it's, time to be awake. When there's no light, time to be asleep. So when a clock is reset and matched to an environmental cycle or changes through the influence of a Zeitgeber, it is said to be entrained, and the process is called entrainment. So please, and I'll just underline that word there, so it is entrained. So when it is reset and matched to an environmental cycle, it is said to be entrained. So in other words, when your body starts to fall asleep when it's dark, then that means that it is being entrained, right? When you're talking about Zeitgebers or circadian rhythms and environmental time cues, you need to be talking about entrained and entrainment. And this means that you are being, your body or biological rhythm is matching the environmental cues around you. So you start to fall asleep when it's dark outside. So when a circadian rhythm is synchronized with a day-night cycle, it may be referred to as a dineural rhythm. So let's just put that there. So when it is synchronized with the day-night cycle, it may be referred to as dineural rhythm. It barely comes up though. Of course. So a Zeitgeber is when our sleep-wake cycle matches the environmental cues that surround us. And when this happens, it's called entrainment. Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of all the thingy-majiggies. Alrighty. There we go. For example, when it's nighttime and are awake, sorry, I'll rephrase that. For example, we sleep when it is night and are awake when it's daytime. So the Zeitgeber in this situation is the daytime and the nighttime. When our circadian rhythm, which goes for 24 hours, matches the day-night cycle, it is called the dineural rhythm. Alright, so you may want to hold on to this little chart or this diagram and put it into your notes. So, environmental time cues. Light is the main environmental cue that influences the sleep-wake cycle. You're more likely to wake up due to light than anything else. An area of the hypothalamus, and we need to, let's underline that, and any money I'll have to delete it again. So the hypothalamus, called the suprachiasmatic, and I probably said that wrong, is considered to be the master biological clock. So it's what determines and regulates the timing of the sleep-wake cycle, right, as well as body temperature. So the SCN receives information about the amount of incoming light from the eyes and adjusts our sleep-wake cycle accordingly. So you're more likely to wake up as more and more light comes through your window. Or if your parents say, "Oi, get up," and they turn on the light and open up the blinds, you're more likely to wake up, and that's because of the SCN. And I'm not saying it again because I'm surprised I said it right the first time. So the amount of melatonin, oh, I haven't got that far. So, I'm just going to say that again. The SCN receives information about the amount of incoming light from the eyes and adjusts our sleep-wake cycle accordingly. It does so by sending neuronal messages to the nearby pineal gland. So let's just underline that. All right, so we're sending neuronal messages to the pineal gland to secrete more or less of the hormone melatonin into the blood. So keep this in mind. This word here, melatonin, right, is associated with alertness. Higher melatonin levels are associated with greater drowsiness and vice versa. And that's why if you happen to need to get to sleep, they do have what's known as melatonin tablets, and most sleep tablets have some level of melatonin in them to help you fall asleep. And to be honest, I have tried melatonin tablets and they have not worked. I tried it on the plane. No, did not work. But in theory, it is what helps you to fall asleep. Now, here is a few factors for you. Melatonin is less in people with Asperger's. The medication that they take is designed to help them fall asleep, but I used to work with quite a few people who had Asperger's, and what used to happen was they wouldn't sleep they'd sleep very, very little, because the amount of melatonin that they had was quite little, or it was reduced. When you are on your phone, and don't lie to me, I know you're on your phone before you go to bed because I do it, so I know, right? You should really try to avoid that, because as soon as you open up your phone, you're releasing, or you're at least exposing your eyes. So we're looking at this bit here. So the amount of light into the eyes, right? And then as soon as that light from your phone sends this neuronal message to the pineal gland, and then it releases more melatonin into the blood, right? Actually, it releases less, because that light is telling you, okay, wake up. So if you happen to fall asleep in the middle of the night and, you know, you roll over, you wake up and you go, I want to know the time, do not check your phone. Just wait. Just wait. Because if you open up that phone, there is a good chance that you will not fall back asleep, because the amount of light will actually reduce the amount of melatonin. Of course. I'm just going to leave it there. No, I'm not. So if we happen to have a look at light, it then goes to the hypothalamus. And don't forget to include, you know, what the hypothalamus actually is, right? And we're going to try this again, to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN. Oh, I did good again. Receives information about the amount of light that is present and whether it's time to sleep or awake. So opening up your phone tells your hypothalamus and your suprachiasmatic nucleus, oh, I'm getting good, that it's time to wake up. So the SCN sends a message to the pineal gland to release the melatonin, which is associated with sleep. The more melatonin we have, the drowsier or sleepier we are. So for example, Alana has been working late night shifts at KFC. When she gets home in the morning, she needs to sleep. However, there is too much light in her bedroom. This light prevents the SCN in the hypothalamus from sending a message to the pineal gland to release melatonin, and as a result, Alana doesn't get any sleep. Remember, melatonin is important to sleep. If you are tired, then your brain has released too much melatonin. However, artificial light, such as a mobile phone, can also prevent the release of melatonin. So use your phone before going to bed can prevent you from falling asleep. It's preventing me because I keep checking the updates. So, don't use your phone if you're trying to sleep. In addition to sunlight, artificial lighting can be bright enough to impede the release of melatonin. This includes room lights and light emitted by laptops, tablets, and mobile phones. When light is detected, the SCN also performs functions such as initiating an increase in bodily temperature and the release of stimulating hormones like cortisol to promote alertness and support other arousal activities. So think of it this way. At the moment, our sleep patterns in the modern world have changed drastically. And this is because we have so much artificial light that we're staying up later and later and later, and usually getting up when the sun comes up. So we're not getting as much sleep as what we probably should. So the SCN also deals with temperature and the release of hormones, and cortisol happens to help us to become alert and make us aroused, and not that way. So ultradian rhythms, so the first one was circadian rhythms, and they go for 24 hours. An ultradian rhythm involves changes in bodily functions or activities that occur as a part of a shorter than 24 hour. So their cycles shorter than 24 hours. These include our heartbeat, our breathing rate, so respiration, right? They're quite important. The best known ultradian rhythm is human sleep. So remember, the sleep-wake cycle is a circadian rhythm. The sleep cycle is an ultradian rhythm. And the sleep cycle only goes for 90 minutes. So you have certain cycles that you go through when you sleep, and then they get repeated and repeated and repeated. So it's distinctly different states and stages of sleep, where there is alternating periods of sleep with and without rapid eye movements and other physiological responses that are also ultradian rhythms. So each sleep cycle lasts for about 90 minutes. Please make sure you remember that. 90 minutes. Sleep cycle lasts for about 90 minutes. Not sleep-wake cycle, just the sleep cycle. I hope you're getting my little message here. So its duration and number of cycles that occur are influenced by many variables such as age, health, and environmental cues. So like I said before, the amount of light and artificial light that you're getting into the room, right, will actually influence how many of these cycles you have. So let's say, for example, you went to bed at 2 a.m. in the morning, right? And that's because you've kept the lights on, you've got your laptop or your phone on, and then you get up at 7 because that's when the light came through your window. So you'll only have maybe 2 sleep cycles compared to somebody who went to bed at maybe 10. Same sort of thing with age. Older people tend to sleep less because there's a couple of different theories as to why that occurs, but older people tend to sleep less. Young infants tend to sleep almost 16 to 18 hours, right? That'd be nice, but not good for you. So we had the circadian rhythm, which was 24 hours. We have the ultradian rhythm, which is less than 24 hours. The infradian rhythm lasts for longer than 1 day, right? Usually, and the most common one is the menstrual cycle, right? Because it goes every 28 days, in theory. So, while the duration of the menstrual cycle varies from one individual to another, sometimes from one cycle to the next, most cycle is 28 days. Let's not go into details about that. Okay, notes to take away from the lesson. I'm sorry it's in orange. I just realized it's very difficult to read. Sleep is reversible. Sleep is an altered state of consciousness. Our bodily functions change as we sleep. So body temperature, blood pressure drops. There are 3 types of bodily rhythms. Circadian rhythm is a period of 24 hours, so the sleep-wake cycle. The ultradian rhythm is less than 24 hours, so the sleep cycle, which is 90 minutes. Infradian rhythm is more than 24 hours, so the menstrual cycle, 28 days. Melatonin is a hormone which is secreted by the pineal gland via the hypothalamus, I should say, which helps us sleep. Okay, so we're just going to have a look at a worked exam question. And unfortunately, I couldn't find one that is associated directly with the content we've covered today, but it does go from last week's content. So, a number of different devices are used to monitor a person's sleep in a sleep laboratory, and this is worth 3 marks. So it's broken down into name 2 devices that can be used to monitor the sleep stages, and then describe how each device you have named above can be used as an indicator of a person's stage of sleep. So before you even start answering this question, what you need to do is work out where the marks are and what the important elements are. So, we know that it's 3 marks. We've got name 2 devices, and every time you see a number of how many things you should do, you should highlight it. And because it says name, it just means to name them. That's it. You don't need to do anything else, just name them. And then it says describe. How each device has named above can be used as an indicator of a person's stage of sleep. So this is a 2-part sort of question. When it says describe, you need to actually explain what the device does and how it relates to a stage of sleep. Naming them will not get you 2 marks, even though it says 2 there. So it's worth 3 marks, but including 2 here gets you your 1 mark. I know that sounds weird, but because you're only naming it, it's not very high. So let's say, for example, you only did 1 of the devices, you actually don't get 1 mark for it. So you have to have 2, right? And this one obviously will be 2 marks because you've got to use more detail. So first up, name 2 devices. So we've got electroencephalogram, the EEG, electrooculogram, EOG, or the electromyogram, EMG. So you'd write down 2 of those. Alright, all 3 actually do monitor the sleep stages, but we actually only have to write 2 in order to get the 1 mark. Now, describe how each device you have named can be used as an indicator of a person's stage of sleep. So the electroencephalogram, remember, detects, amplifies, and records the electrical activity of the brainwaves and can be used to decide the stage of sleep. Different stages of sleep show different brainwave patterns. And then you've got the electrooculogram. Once again, it detects, amplifies, and records the electrical activity of the muscles controlling movements of the eyes. During REM sleep, the eyes move rapidly back and forth, resulting in short bursts of waves. In NREM sleep, or non-rapid eye movement sleep, the EOG records the eyes as moving slowly from side to side in a rhythmic fashion. The electromyogram detects, amplifies, and records the electrical activity of the muscles, usually of the jaw. And I've just put that in highlight in capitals there. During the REM sleep, the muscles are paralyzed and the EMG records low amplitude waves due to muscle atonia, which pretty much means that you're not moving. In stages 1 and 2, sleep muscle tone is greater, which means that you still haven't relaxed, you're still very tense, and in stages 3 and 4 it tends to just sort of slacken off a bit. So, when we're looking at this particular answer, I've described what it is, and I've stated how it indicates stage of sleep. And this particular question is quite interesting because a lot of people get this wrong because they just describe what it does, but doesn't actually finish off the rest of the sentence, which was, how does it indicate a person's stage of sleep? So you have to read the whole question, and going into the exam with an actual highlighter and working out where the marks are and what you need to answer. For the multiple choice, you do them on your own or do them as class. And then that. Do your work, people.